Holy Week begins, and for many of us, we are at home. It's a different perspective on Palm Sunday, now on the Accessible Faith Project. Hi there, I'm John, and welcome to the Accessible Faith Project. If you're new here and looking for insights into the Bible, faith, and history in ways that will engage your brain, then please hit subscribe and that little bell icon so you can be notified anytime I upload a new video. The story of Christ's Passion from start to finish is never a convenient read with what we have come to expect from Sunday morning worship. Usually when I'm at my perch in a pulpit instead of here at home, I've noticed that if a passage gets over 10 verses long, we begin to fidget, wondering when the next part of the service is coming up. Now, since I'm doing this digitally, there is the temptation because you can click ahead to the next components of worship. But let's consider the whole story on this first day of Holy Week. At its best, Holy Week is supposed to be a recounting of those stories on each day. On Palm Sunday, we celebrate the triumphal entry. On Maundy Thursday, we celebrate a meal that we mark as the Lord's Supper, and we remember the betrayal and arrest of Jesus. On Good Friday, we mark the crucifixion. There is a power to walk through these stories these days, but there's also a power in telling the story in its entirety. So as we enter into a Holy Week like no other, where we cannot gather in person, maybe it's an opportunity to consider the whole story. Today we recall the great triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem. The common people are waving palm branches, throwing their cloaks down in front of this teacher from the north. Whispers of the Messiah has come to them, an heir to the throne of David, and the people have been waiting for so long for this. They have struggled under the weight of Roman occupation for years, and before that, the Greek kings, and before that, the Babylonians, and before that, well, it has gone on for far too long. Everybody gets caught up in the crowd, the enthusiasm is infectious, and that, by its very nature, is a double-edged sword. They chant a welcome for this solitary figure that they can anticipate, and yet, as he goes by, he doesn't look like a ruler. They were told a new king was coming, and yet what they see, what they experience, is someone humble, almost pauper-like in his clothing. He's not riding a horse. It's a donkey or a colt, or, well, it's not a horse. So even among the cheers, there's something else brewing. He's not what they were expecting. But how could he be? The expectations that the people of Israel had built up over centuries of oppressive rule. They want a political ruler. They want a powerful earthly king who will live up to their expectations, kicking the Romans out and restoring things to the way they were, the good old days. When the crowds start to gather, those hopes and dreams build, along with their cries. They flock to his side and shout their welcome to this one that people say is the Son of David. They shout Messiah, they shout Hosanna, they shout their welcome to this new king that has come into their midst. It is a joyous and triumphal day, but it is short-lived. Soon the cries will turn into something else, something much darker. You see, not even Jesus can live up to their expectations. His reasons for coming to Jerusalem are far more profound, but far more subtle than anyone can imagine. Not even his closest friends truly know what will come of this. As much as we celebrate Palm Sunday with joyful praises, waving our palm branches and joining in the choruses of Hosanna, I think we forget how misplaced those celebrations were. Everybody flocked to Jesus, thinking that he would fulfill their own expectations, their own desires and wants. Their praises and welcome were for an earthly king, yet when it soon became clear that Jesus was not there to assume the throne, their tone changed. Soon the object of their praise would become the target of scorn and ridicule. Joy turns to anger, open hands become clenched fists, and by the end of the week, this welcome teacher, hailed as Messiah, stands condemned by the same people who welcomed him. We need to remember our darkest moment when all of humanity rose up against God, because not even God could live up to our expectations. And while it is tempting to simply skip ahead to the next Sunday, the road to Easter stops at the foot of the cross. Going straight to Easter glosses over the presence of God in the midst of suffering in the world. It reminds us that we as human beings play a role in that suffering, either by causing it or working to change it. And I hope that we together can work for the latter. This week, especially this week, as the news of COVID-19 continues to come in from all around the world, and as we are ensconced in our own homes in a bid to keep one another safe, remember that it is here in the darkness that makes the hope of Easter real. We need to remember the darkness for the light to come, because that is truly the whole story. Amen.